What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Zone. Today, let's get started with Alex Pereira breaks silence on retirement comments. On Wednesday, Alex Pereira took to social media with a strange post. And before we continue, make sure to leave a like on the video to help support the channel. In the post, he expressed his frustrations with the UFC while teasing a potential retirement. I always answered the UFC's calls, but if they want to play with me, we can do that. I've never spoken poorly of the UFC, but with what I've just heard, I'm disheartened. I've already had thoughts of not fighting anymore, and after what was just relayed to me, this may be the start. While the post immediately left fight fans worried that Poatan might actually be considering retirement, he then popped up on Instagram with a video where he cleared the air, saying that his account was hacked and his relationship with the UFC is great. I've received a ton of messages, getting messages from everyone who saw a post from my Twitter. I didn't even know about it. I was hacked. It's been a while since I posted anything you guys see, but I was hacked and I'll resolve it. I don't even know what's going on. I have a great relationship with the UFC. People like to do bad things. That's that. Shama. While Pereira said that everything is all good between him and the UFC, not everyone's buying it. As fight fans may remember, when Dustin Poirier got hacked, the hacker made a series of controversial posts while promoting a cryptocurrency. In response to Poatan's video, plenty of members of the MMA community expressed skepticism, with Matt Frivola replying, "LOL, hacked." Others wondered whether perhaps after seeing his post, the UFC called Pereira and smoothed things over, with reporter John Nash joking, "I believe him. Very common for someone to hack a social media account to post something alluding to a very specific issue between a promoter and fighter." Considering Pereira said that everything's good between him and the UFC, hopefully we get some news regarding a Magomed Ankalaev rematch ASAP. Magomed Ankalaev reacted to the Alex Pereira situation last night with saying, "It was me, I hacked his account. Don't worry Alex, I'm waiting for you." And the followed up this morning by saying, "The only thing was hacked, it's Alex's brain. He's not a champion anymore. I'm waiting for you, don't worry." Ilia Topuria fight announcement today? According to El Hormiguero, which is a Spanish media outlet, Ilia Topuria's next opponent will be revealed later tonight on their broadcast. They shared the following message on their social media account. "Tonight, we're joined by UFC champion Ilia Topuria, who will share all the details about his upcoming fight scheduled for June 28th in Las Vegas." Does this mean Dana White will announce the UFC 317 card later today? Arman Tsarukyan next fight revealed. On the heels of reports that Arman Tsarukyan turned down a fight with Mattel's Gamrot, the top-ranked lightweight has booked a grappling match against Patricky Pitbull on the ADXC 10 card in Moscow on May 31st. Patricky Pitbull, not to be confused with his brother, Patricio Pitbull, although he's in the midst of a 3-fight skid that most recently saw him drop a split decision to Bruno Miranda, he'll now have a chance to grapple with one of the best fighters on the planet. Despite the fact that the grappling match seems poised to deliver fireworks, MMA fans are still eagerly awaiting news on Tsarukyan's next fight after he was forced out of his UFC 311 title fight with Islam Makhachev. Dricus du Plessis reveals huge problem for UFC to go to South Africa. At one point in time, a fight between Dricus du Plessis and Israel Adesanya in South Africa was all the rage. Despite that, nothing ever came to fruition, with no timeline for when the UFC may decide to have DDP defend his title on his home turf. During an appearance on the CS du Plessis show, the champion explained why the UFC has not been able to make an event in South Africa happen.
And people always like, why don't they want to bring it? They want to bring it.
Yeah.
Listen to this. A UFC ticket in the T-Mobile Arena. I think the cheapest seat, and that's 23,000 people. The cheapest seat in that arena is $300. So let's say we get an arena, we have a 14,000 seater, we definitely have that. The prices are gonna be, we don't have that kind of money. Where are you gonna get 14,000 people where the cheapest seat in the back is gonna be probably 10,000 Rand? That is the biggest problem we have, and that's why they need to make it big.
Because of the astronomical ticket prices for pay-per-view cards, the champion feels as though perhaps the UFC will bring a card to Africa someday. It just might not be a pay-per-view. As we've seen heading into this weekend's UFC 315 card, ticket prices are an issue for North American fans as well. With just days to go before the Muhammad JDM card, there are still tons of seats at the Bell Center in Montreal, with the cheapest tickets available being $290 Canadian with fees, or $209 US. Garry sends a warning to Belal Muhammad ahead of UFC 315 after beating Carlos Prates on short notice and stepping in as the backup fighter for this weekend's main event between Belal Muhammad and Jack Della Maddalena. Garry is all in on a title fight. While there's been no word from the UFC on whether he'll be next in line for a crack at the winner of this weekend's fight, Garry has fired a warning shot at Belal Muhammad while speaking with media members on Wednesday, saying that he wants to take the champion's belt in Chicago. I believe Belal wins this weekend, and when Belal wins this weekend, there ain't a bigger fight to make than me and Belal. And I want to do it in his backyard. I want to do it in Chicago. I want to sell it out. I want to be the guy to do it, and I want to take his belt in his hometown. As Garry told Full Send MMA, he has no plans to accept anything other than a title fight after his short notice win over Carlos Prates. I don't think I need to. I believe I'm the biggest name in the division. You know what I mean? I injured Shavkat. He's not going to be fighting this year. You know what I mean? I don't see anyone who's bigger or anyone who's more interesting to put on a pay-per-view main event and sell out a stadium. There is no one bigger. As Garry explained to MMA Junkie, he's more skilled than he thinks he is, and because of that awareness, he's not worried about potentially stepping in on short notice for the biggest fight of his career. I'm better than I actually think I am. Like, I'm so much more talented than I'm aware I am, and every time I step into the octagon against these dangerous opponents, I'm able to beat them with ease. So this weekend, if I'm needed, I will go in there no matter who it's against, and I will find a win if I'm needed. Ahead of this weekend's card, Belal Muhammad spoke about Garry being the short notice backup during his media day appearance, saying, "I think he's doing all the right stuff. He took that short notice fight against a guy with a lot of hype and he won convincingly. He's talking the loudest right now, especially in a division where if Shavkat's hurt, there's not a clear number one contender and the loudest guy in the room is going to get the call. So I think he's doing the right stuff. I mean, I think he better hope that Jack shows up because if he does have to step in on short notice, it's going to be a bad night." Whether Garry winds up next in line for a crack at the title, only time will tell. Merab fights Gorilla at his MMA gym. There's been a lot of debate about the 100 men versus one Gorilla topic. Well, it looks like one Merab is enough for a Gorilla. Check this out. Robert Whittaker versus Reinier is in the works. After emerging unscathed from his fight with Bo Nickal in Des Moines, Reinier apparently has a fight in the works. According to a report from Setanta Sports' Georgi Kyokashvili, the UFC is working on a potential fight between RDR and Robert Whittaker. However, so far, no potential news on a targeted date is available for the bout. The news coincides with a comment that Whittaker posted on Instagram, where he responded to a fan saying that he had fight news coming soon. The last time we saw Whittaker in the octagon was back in October, when he was on the wrong end of a gnarly submission loss at the hands of Khamzat Chimaev. The L snapped a 2-fight win streak for the former champ and dropped him to number 5 on the UFC's middleweight rankings. On the other hand, for RDR, his recent win over Bo Nickal made it 3 in a row since joining the UFC, with all 3 of his wins coming by stoppage. Benoit Saint-Denis reveals huge mistake ahead of UFC 315. When Benoit Saint-Denis collided with Dustin Poirier, the expectation was that with a win, BSD would wind up in title contention. As the number 13 ranked lightweight explained heading into this weekend's card in Montreal, he fought his way up the UFC rankings without a head coach. Now, ahead of his short notice fight against Kyle Propolek this weekend, he believes that not having a head coach was a huge mistake. As he explained to the UFC during a media day appearance on Wednesday, "I made a huge mistake to be the general and the soldier. I was the one coaching myself. I had a lot of coaches for separate disciplines, but I didn't have a head coach. It was a huge mistake because when I entered the fight, I didn't know how to start it or what were the keys to victory. I knew it, and after the first round, I had a strong second round, but Renato did a good job, and one of my eyes got closed. Despite being well prepared, it got him the victory. It's because I had the worst round of my life because I was the head coach of my camp, and you cannot do that. You have to be a soldier inside the cage." While Propolek is not ranked, a win for Saint-Denis would snap a 2-fight skid that most recently saw him lose to Renato Moicano in September, and likely put him in a position to fight up in the rankings. UFC fight updates. Heading into this weekend's UFC 315 card, let's take a look at today's UFC fight updates, starting with 2 new additions to the UFC 316 card at the beginning of June. According to reports, Johnny Walker has been forced out of his fight with Azamat Murzakanov. Instead, the UFC has tapped Brenson Ribeiro to fill in for Walker. Ribeiro enters the bout in the midst of a 2-fight win streak that most recently saw him submit Dr. Nergozai back in mid-March. Shifting gears and looking ahead to July, MMA Junkie's Nolan King is reporting that Steve Garcia will throw down with Calvin Kattar on the UFC Fight Night Nashville card. Kattar will be looking to snap a 4-fight skid that most recently saw him drop a decision to Youssef Zalal in February. On the flip side, Garcia will look to build on a 5-fight win streak that most recently saw him pick up a win against Kyle Nelson in September. We also have a bout between Andre Mascote and Felipe Bunez, reportedly set for the beginning of August. Mascote has gone undefeated since signing with the UFC in 2023. On the flip side, Bunez is fresh off a first-round submission win over Jose Johnson in January. And last but not least, in the way of today's UFC fight updates, Shamil Gaziev has shared an update on his hand injury with fans, indicating that surgery went well and he's hoping to be back in a few months. Part of our job, surgery finished good. Few months of rehab and we will be back, inshallah. Joe Rogan faces major backlash for comments. During a recent episode of the JRE, Joe Rogan said something that got the entire MMA world furious. And before we continue, we have a favor to ask. Help us reach 200,000 subscribers on MMA Zone by subscribing and turning on notifications for daily MMA content. Seriously, we rarely miss a day. Rogan said that peak BJ Penn could be any lightweight ever, and that's including Khabib Nurmagomedov. Here's what he had to say.
It's like people talk about Khabib being the greatest lightweight of all time, and maybe he is. It's very possible he is. But I would put the BJ Penn that fought Joe Daddy Stevenson, the BJ Penn that fought Sean Shirk, the BJ Penn that was like in that peak when he was training with I would put him against anybody. Against anybody. Against when he fought Diego Sanchez, he couldn't be stopped. And if you got him to the ground, his submission game was insane. It was insane off of his back. He would take your back, he would knock you out standing up. His kickboxing was elite. And
how do you think Khabib would fight him?
Take him down for sure. He'd probably fight him the same way George St. Pierre did.
The MMA community did not hold back. This is what they had to say. He got KO'd by a random guy while sharing an old street fight footage of BJ Penn getting knocked out. Oh, absolutely, Joe. BJ Penn at his peak with a 16-14 record is definitely wiping the floor with a 29-0 Khabib. Next, you'll be telling us Chuck Norris could have beaten Jon Jones if he trained for 2 weeks. That's the problem when you compare fighters to Khabib. You have to choose a specific BJ Penn from a specific fight to be able to compare. You can put any Khabib from any fight against any lightweight, and he would still mold them. No fighter comes close to Khabib. This is why Rogan needs to be removed from commentary permanently. Yeah, sure, Joe, the biggest frontrunner in MMA history, a man who literally never won a fight in which he lost a round, is going to be mentally strong enough to overcome the Khabib grind, I'm sure. For someone with such a vast knowledge of MMA, his takes are surprisingly bad. Gotta leave the game before it leaves you. This is getting ridiculous at this point. Unk shouldn't be allowed an MMA take anymore. Yeah, Rogan is washed. How does Joe Rogan know so much about MMA but at the same time have some of the worst takes I've ever heard? This is the same who said that Ronda could beat Floyd at boxing. We've got to get Joe Rogan checked for CTE after this take. Bro, I was a BJ Penn fan, but if you think Khabib doesn't smash the best version of him, you're as delusional as BJ is these days. What are your thoughts on Joe Rogan's comments? Do you agree, or was this a wild take from the UFC commentator? Let us know down in the comments below.